record it. Hello, everyone. I've started recording at this point in our meeting because this is when I'm going to go over our papers, how to write them, and basically how to organize the stuff in class. So Therese is allowing me to record her. Say hi, Therese. Hi, Therese. All right. So anyway, let me go back and share my screen and go over a few things we've already gone over. The most important things to remember for this class is like keep a little checklist. The first thing is each week has one homework assignment. For example, last week I got a few people that were like, Miss, what's the homework? Because there weren't chapter exercises. But if you go back and you read really carefully, here, hold on one second. I'm gonna go back to this week so everybody knows what I'm talking about. You will notice in this week or last week when you had to do your work, hold on, I'm almost there. Right here at the top, it says the data assignment replaces the textbook readings and exercises for the week, which means that this data was your homework, right? So we need to definitely make sure that we have that, like remember there's a rhythm to the class, right? It's almost over sadly, but that's the rhythm. Each week has one homework assignment and each week has at least one discussion posting, right? Sometimes there's more depending. Now, there are also 3 papers, which we'll talk about in depth. You have your observation paper, which many of you did, and many of you did it great, and some of you did, and some of you didn't do so great, but we're meeting individually about that if you want to, and some of you didn't do it at all, which is never good, so please do those. You have your existing sources paper, hold on. And we also have your survey research. So, and remember, you completed the survey questions for that paper during week 2. Which is why when I was grading your survey questions today to make sure that they were appropriate and worked, I was like, wait, nobody had a hypothesis for these, like a lot of you did, but some of you were just like, survey, let me just, like whatever it was, but there has to be a reason behind everything you do, right? So if you'll see in my other video, I mentioned that. And then there's a final at the end of the class and it's open book, I believe. I have to double check, but not a big deal. All right, so let's talk about these 3 papers. So if you check this stuff off, like, homework assignment done, discussion post done. Was there a paper due this week? Wasn't there a paper due this week? That's how you do it. Now, I want to show you a trick, as I've done before, to doing these papers. Let's talk about it. I want you to think about the fact that you can use one hypothesis for this. So for example, if you took a hypothesis like, more men will hold the door open for women, or you took a hypothesis like more women will bring their kids to the park, or men are more aggressive drivers than women, or you could do something with a racial component, but you can't ask any questions and you can't interact and you can't, that's not observation. Observation is only what I can see. Because I want to talk to you about the 2 most important things you guys should already know about research. The first thing is reliability. And the second thing is validity. All of our projects in social science and our research should be reliable and valid. And what reliable means is that if you do a study and you prove or disprove your hypothesis, people 20, 40, 50 years from now should be able to go to that research, replicate your steps, and get the same results. Which means that the setting portion of your observation paper needs to be incredibly detailed, right? Like it is a Friday, it is sunny outside, I am sitting on a bench watching people walk by. My hypothesis is that if I smile, people will smile back at me, right? Like something like that. It's behavior. Sociology is the study of human behavior. So for that very first paper, I wanted you guys to watch society. Take note of your settings, right? That's very important. Many of you did that. I went over it in detail in a video, so we're going to take that one out of here. Now, validity means, are you studying what you really meant to study? Some of us will start out with gender roles and we end up with Vera Wang bags, right? Like we have to make sure that we are always studying what we said we're studying. You start out with one hypothesis, you end up with something that's not even connected. So to be valid, you have to maintain that same, doesn't matter how interesting something else came up, put that in your conclusion. So those are the 2 most important things that I'm teaching you through these projects. So that being said, your next paper is this, is this existing research paper. And what I'm actually going to go back to a different version because I was helping another student with this. Watch this. If you've been in Google Drive before, you might not know this, but all of your versions of your work, you can like reinstate them. So I want to see, do I want this version? I don't, I think I want this version. Yeah. So I'm actually going to restore this version so I can show you. I mean, that's just basic Google Drive. It's really helpful. And I just wanted to go through this. So in your syllabus, you have an outline. Oh, we have another person. In your syllabus, you have an outline for the paper, your existing research paper. And I would just copy that outline. Welcome, whoever's joining us. I'm just going through their. Hi. So we're going through this. Copy that outline and put it right into your paper. I want to see the outline. I want to see introduction, review of literature. I want to see it all, right? So actually setting is not that. So in the introduction, your hypothesis should always be there. So, you know, for existing research, you can use the same hypothesis you used for observation if it was good, you know, if I didn't give you any feedback on that. So for example, let's use my more men will stop and help me pick up change as I'm walking down, you know, on the green. You drop some change, see who helps pick it up, right? This is COVID, so maybe you don't want to be that close, but you could like, more men drive aggressively, sit on your front porch and look at, you know, who's blowing the stop sign in front of your house, right? That might have been what it is. Maybe that's a whole conversation about gender and aggression, right? Could be a million things. So now I'm on my existing research and I'm like, I still want to focus on this. Or I'm like, no, that was boring. I want to do something else. But you can use the same hypothesis. You're just not going to use your eyes anymore. You're going to use your Google tools. Existing research is now I'm going to make sure, did I prove my hypothesis or disprove it based on other people's data? So now I'm going to take the same thing, but instead of watching the behavior, I'm going to Google, oh, look at that chart. Oh, look at this study. Look at that. I actually did, again, prove or disprove my hypothesis. So your introduction will be like, I'm so interested in this topic because, you know, I always say, if you want to write a good paper, put a little BS in there and a little truth, right? It's good. You gotta learn that. It's, some people call it a hook, right? Hook me into it. Then you're gonna wanna put your hypothesis clear and stated. Hypotheses are not questions, they are statements. My hypothesis is, maybe this is my hypothesis, more males will participate in rec center activities than females. That was one of your classmates, but it was really good, right? So it's like, okay, great. Now she has her interest. Now she has her actual hypothesis. The next section from your outline in your syllabus is the review of literature. I don't think I spelled that right. No, I didn't. Hold on. Okay. So review of the literature actually is now you're going to say, okay, watch this. I read, right? Whatever article you read. Here is a great quote. So you quote something from the article, right? And then you say, I think this about the article. I agree with it. I don't agree with it. I'm worried about it. It might be flawed. It was great. You know, whatever you want. And I said you need at least two, right? So again, the next paragraph or two paragraphs is I read. Here's a great quote, right? Here's the quote. You always want to do a quote. It fills your paper up. Come on. And what do you think about it, right? That's all a review of the literature is. Like, don't let anybody ever make it sound crazy. It's I read it. Here's what I think about it. Here's a cool quote. That's all it is, right? I think blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now you're done with your review of literature. Now you're going to go into the method section, right? What did you do? I looked at the data from the tables in the articles and I measured it against my hypothesis, right? Because you now have a hypothesis and now you're going to check it. Findings. What did the data tell you? Was it right? Was it wrong? Did you prove it? Did you not prove it? Did the data itself argue against each other? Is there room for future studies? And then in your conclusion, this is where you can always go wild. That's where you get to be absolutely you. This is so cool. I can't believe I found this out. All of that stuff. So you can actually put your thoughts and your actual subjective stuff into your conclusion. That's this existing research paper. It is not rocket science and I want it. Meaning like, even if you think you did it wrong, submit it, because I don't know if it's not there. I can't contact you and say, wow, let's talk about this, right? So I want something submitted would be great. And then we can talk about it. And you guys should know, I've said it a million times, text me. Text me. Text me at 11 p.m. and I will most likely text you back that we could meet the next day. I will never leave you hanging, which kind of is not great for those of you that want to hide in the background, because I'm never going to be a teacher that you were like, oh, well, I tried and she didn't. It's not me. You can do it a million times. I'm never going to mark anything down because it's late. Why? Why would I do that? I want you to learn it. So here's what you have to do. Just do it and we'll talk about it. Don't be afraid. The only way, this is a hard class. It's a 200 level class. You have to do a million exercises that are not that self-explanatory. You have to do all these papers. You have to think outside the box. You have to go into these forums and lay your soul bare about stuff that's really scary in this particular environment we're in. You guys are doing a bang up job, and it's a huge class. That's another thing. It's a huge class to be vulnerable in, right? Excellent work. So now what I need you to do is just not overthink it. Remember, I am teaching you how to do these very basic research methods, techniques, but in a big study, we would be like, in a big study, you would use all of these techniques. You would have observation, you would have existing research, you would have survey, right? So anyway, all right, so that is your actual existing research sample. Now, of course, if we were doing a real study, it would be much more, in depth, but those are the basics. I've had questions about the survey research as well. The survey questions that you handed in to me that I have now graded, if there's not a grade, please check the comments, were supposed to be the basis for this paper. So the idea is that you create a survey, I approve it, and then you, to maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different people that you know well and know that it's just for school and it's not a real survey, because we can't do that. If it was real, I'd have to get it approved, by the Human Studies Board. But this is just an exercise that you would actually share that, and then they would email it back to you, or you would get the results back on SurveyMonkey if you used it, and you'd be able to take that data, collect it, and write your paper. So if you've got an approved survey, you should be sending it to people. Remember, 3 or 4, let them know it's an exercise, so that you can get your data so you can start writing that paper. So that's what that's about. And there's an outline as well. And I can create even another video for you next week that can outline exactly how to do it. But I don't want anybody to get overwhelmed. Do your best and let me know if you need me to review anything. And now I'm going to stop recording, and then I'm going to talk to the people that are in the meeting for questions and stuff. But if you have any questions after watching this, text me, email me, but I'm not, texting is super fast. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording. Okay.